Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1.
Pow! I always like that beginning, the bang. It's actually a gunshot, by the way. It's supposed to be the sound effect. But anyways, I real quick, like I have to do this every single time. I have to go through and I have to share it out to the Save New York private group. And then, right, let's see. Let me get, I just messed it up. I'm not even on the right page yet. Let me get this and share it out to the private group. And then we get started here because we're here with Ayesha Kreutz. Really, now my computer wants to run slow. Okay, let me just share this out real quick. Share it out to a group. This is the only bad thing. Facebook does not allow you to share it out to groups or anything anymore. Add everyone. This way, hopefully, everybody gets it going here. Share. Posting. All right. Every single time. It drives me nuts. I got to do this. Anyways, all right. So we're here with the guest is Ayesha Kreutz and Dennis Hannon. First, right off the bat, I want to say that John Smaldon will be coming back on the show pretty soon. I just talked to him tonight. He had some issues he had to take care of. I want to bring that to everybody's attention that hopefully next week he's going to come back. He's been out for several weeks. He had some personal issues to take care of, so he'll be back. But we're here with Ayesha Kreutz and Dennis Hannon. And actually, it's the fabulous Ayesha Kreutz. And I don't know where she went. She kind of disappeared a little bit. She might have to cut out early because she has her grandbaby in the back seat of the vehicle, and she might have to cut out early.
Family first.
Family first, yes. So Ayesha Kreutz is I've known her for a couple of years, 3 years now, I believe 3 or 4 years. Time goes by too fast, right, Ayesha? But so she's the founder of the Frederick Douglass Foundation of New York, and you're an activist. You know a lot of people all over the country, pretty much. And then we have Dennis Hannon, who is well known for, in my opinion, being what a father should be. All right, and that's protecting your kid. A real father will protect their kids. Everybody share this video out because they're going to be talking about stuff that's really important to New Yorkers and actually really important across the country. But so Dennis Hannon, he was on the Tucker. I mean, what he went through was he was on the Tucker Carlson show. He was on the Ingram Angle, also I believe, right? Ingram Angle. He was on this. His story went nationwide, and it's really an incredible story. But what he went through and what he struggled through to make sure that his son was protected and not. I don't even know how to explain it.
Groomed.
Not groomed
into a radical gender ideology.
Yes, so we're going to talk about Proposition 1, that's on the back of the ballot, and they call it the ERA. I believe it's called the ERA stands for Equal Rights Amendment. Yeah, Equal Rights Amendment. So we're going to talk about that.
Doesn't that sound great? The Equal Rights Amendment. Who wouldn't vote for that? Wow. If I flipped over that ballot, I would see that and I'd go, "How could I vote against that?" But wait, there's more.
So we have. I'm going to tell people if they have any questions to throw it on here. I'm guessing this is probably going to go a little bit more than a half hour. I'm guessing, but we're live on right now. We're live on Facebook, the Save New York private group. We're live on the Save New York public page. We're live on YouTube and we're live on Rumble. The Twitter X. I can't even get into the account anymore, but I don't know what happened there, but I forgot my password. But anyway, so we're not doing that anymore. So until I figured that out. But anyway, so what do you guys want to talk about? What's going on with what you guys are involved with right now, or I'll tell you what. How about Dennis? How about you talk about a little bit about your story, because that's important. Because we tried to get you on for like the last couple of weeks, and then certain situations happened. One situation with your son, then you were sick last week, and that. But if you give everybody a rundown about your story, because I think it's important for people to know that, and why this Equal Rights Amendment thing and how it plays into your situation that you went through for multiple years of struggling to just go ahead and explain your story real quick if you can.
Yeah, so I don't want to spend too much time. What I will do is give kind of like the high level elevator speech. Essentially, I prevented the unilateral gender conversion of my child that started between the ages of 3 to 5. And I fought 7 years in Supreme Court. I took it all the way to Supreme Court trial in Erie County, New York. Started in several family courts prior to that. And I lost on paper, but where I won was where it mattered the most. I saved my son from a forced conversion. He was converted without my knowledge, without my consent, and the school and a few other people and therapists were actually practicing gender affirming care for my child, and I was essentially one of the last people to know about that. But today, my son is a living, walking, breathing truth and kind of a testimony that this is all influence, and this is all it's a social contagion, is what it is, and give children the right to consent to irreversible gender affirming care, and they give them the right to determine what gender they want to identify as. And in some cases, parents are the last to know, especially in a divorce situation. And so the ERA is very important to me in this fight against this, because it codifies that into New York state law, so you can't hold those people accountable. So that's just kind of from my perspective, in a high level. But if you Google my name, Dennis Hannon, you'll see the story, the background. I don't want to spend too much time talking about that, because I think that the big
you should, though. Sorry, I'm just going to jump in here real quick, because Boston and fabulous, but it's so, I mean, I think people maybe just a little bit more about that story, because you said something and kind of went over it really quickly about like the social contagion part of it, about how there's an influence that's there, right? Because we have seen those numbers of children struggling with their sexual identity and gender, gender expression, sexual orientation, all of that. It has jumped exponentially, right, over the last 5 years, from what it used to be to what it is now, to where now we have, like, I hope I have this right. But it's like 1 in 8 kids now are struggling with some sort of, dysphoria. And part of that, I mean, we have to wonder, why is that? And I think your story really goes into that a lot, or kind of helps cut that for people to understand, like, why is it that your child was struggling so much with identity at 3, 5 years old, but now at 10 is not. And so, yeah, I see
All
what
right,
you're
we
saying,
will.
right? Anybody can go Google your
Yeah.
name. I think that it's important, maybe just a little bit more of that story so that people can really understand what it is that you're talking about.
Yeah, so I tried, and Ayesha, thank you, because you always call me out on stuff. I tried to kind of gloss over some of these things, because honestly, folks, I'm going to be real with you. I have spent the majority of my life focusing on my career, and I made a name for myself. I'm a former executive for a major bank. I was a vice president for a major local bank here, software engineer. And I try to gloss over a lot of what happened with my son, because it pains me and it takes a piece of my soul every time I have to talk about it. And I've talked about it so many times, but I will. So my son was groomed at a very early age, probably between 3 to 5. Okay. I was going through a divorce at the time, and I only had him for about, 2 hours, 2 days a week, supervised visits only. So I didn't know what I didn't know. And when I was picking my son up, he was a normal little boy. And when he was going back to his mother's house, and eventually when he started school, he was a girl named Ruby. That's not my son's name. I had no idea. I was the last to know. I found out about this name change when I got a letter in the mail addressed to the parent or guardian of, followed by a female name, and it was Ruby Rose. And I thought originally they mailed the letter to the wrong address, but I opened it anyways because the actual street address was correct and it was from my son's school. And that was when I realized that my son had been socially transitioned at kindergarten age without my knowledge or consent. And I found out because it was a report card in the mail. And it used female pronouns and it referred to my son by this female name. And then it wasn't until I was already in divorce and through court discovery that I had realized that my son was on the fast track to puberty blockers without a diagnosis of gender dysphoria at all. He was too young, according to psychologists that testified under oath before the Supreme Court, to develop a gender identity, right? Because he's 3 to 5. And so these therapists testified that he wasn't old enough to determine his gender because it didn't develop yet, but he might be a girl. And so what happened was we had this treatment plan to convert my son, and he was already socially converted before we even had a diagnosis. He was engaged with a endocrinologist at the University of Rochester named Dr. Tran, real name, and over two 45-minute phone calls totaling. So there were 2 phone calls. I forget how much each one was, but they totaled 45 minutes. They never met or spoke to my child. But Dr. Tran, and I don't even know if that's a female or a male, whatever, but Dr. Tran, over those 2 45-minute phone calls with the mom only, determined that my son could be a candidate for puberty blockers by the age of 9 to 10. If I didn't catch him, I was that close.
Imagine if you didn't get that piece of mail.
He was this close to puberty blockers, and I had no idea. So we served subpoenas, right? And that was the only way that I could find out more. Nobody would speak to me. I reached out to these people. Nobody would talk to me at all. And I'm his father. And I was supposed to have rights to his medical charts and records and everything like that. But nobody engaged me. I wasn't even considered if I wanted to be a part of this treatment plan. But they did it anyways. And when I asked for more information, I didn't even get a response. So it wasn't until Supreme Court subpoenas were served that I started to learn more. I also found out, so this started, he was going to a gender therapist by the name of Andrea Binner in Buffalo. Okay, she specializes in gender affirming care and gender confused children. Andrea Binner, which since I first broke her name, she now works out of her house. She closed her practice, so good riddance to you. But she's still doing the same thing. Okay, Andrea Binner refused a Supreme Court subpoena because she kept no notes of any therapy sessions of my child between the ages of 3 to 5. And Andrea Binner was the one that referred my son to an endocrinologist at the University of Rochester, Dr. Tran. She kept no notes. Nothing was tracked. And so the point of this story, my son is very normal. And by the way, all of these people wanted to say that my son insisted, consisted, and persisted that he was a girl. Where are they now? Because he is a normal little boy. And if you meet that child, now he's old enough, he's 10 years old, and he has a voice. Now he does. Whereas all of these other people wanted to be the voice for him when he was too young to speak for himself. And that's what it was about. This was a business model. They groomed my son, and they wanted to be the voice for somebody who couldn't be.
And I think that that's very important for people to understand, right? That, we want to believe that the medical community, that the doctors, that all of these psychologists, right, they're out for the best. They're out for the good of the person. But this is, one story that got caught, right? That because you found out about it and were able to, work through it and lose everything basically in order to
everything I worked for, 7 years of litigation.
Right. And so we want to believe that, doctors and psychologists and all of these people are for us and are for our children and they want the best. But for us, we also have to be realists, right? And say that there are people that are out there that don't mind. And again, that's part of the scientific community of experimenting on people, right?
And
I
that's
mean,
it.
for
So
a long
that's it. The segue into ERA with all this is anybody that questioned this was seen as discriminatory. I was called a bigot. I was labeled. I was canceled just for questioning this. And my son was never even diagnosed, even to this day, with gender dysphoria, but they had a fast track to puberty blockers for my son. And so with ERA, what it does is it codifies into law anti-discrimination against. It adds the verbiage. It adds age, gender identity, gender expression,
time,
reproductive health care, and autonomy. Right?
it's
All
people
right,
like
Dennis, real quick. Can you explain the ERA and Prop 1 about being on the back of the ballot? Can you give like a general description of what that's all about first?
I
So
want
people know.
I want Ayesha to do that because it's important when she explains the nuts. Ayesha, if you can, I know you're driving.
sure.
But
I'm
when
not
you explain that,
sure.
I'll explain why it's important with my case and how this protects those people.
Yeah, just make people understand before the conversation gets going. People understand what it is, what it's about. And Ayesha is on the viral video
Sure.
on Facebook. Go ahead, the famous Ayesha. Go ahead, explain it.
Yeah. So with the, he said the ERA on the, so it's an amendment to the New York State Constitution. ERA stands for Equal Rights Amendment. It's the Equal Rights Amendment Act. In order for us in New York, because we don't have a citizen initiated referendums, right? So in order for us to amend, there's two ways to amend the New York State Constitution. One of them is the way that we're going to talk about right now, which is through legislation, which it needs to pass the House. I mean, it has to pass the Assembly and the Senate twice in consecutive sessions. And then after it does that, it comes to us, we the people, to vote on. And that's where we're at right now, where we the people in November, on November 5th, will have the opportunity to vote yes or no on this amendment, which on the back of your ballot, all you have to remember is flip it and vote no. Okay. But you have to flip your ballot over and you're going to see Prop 1 or Proposal 1. And that's the same thing as the Equal Rights Amendment ERA, or as we call it, the Parent Replacement Act, which is, I'm so grateful for Dennis. I know that he said that, he doesn't like, talking about it, but has to. And that's what it means, right? For all of us, the courage, not only, but also knowing that we're doing things for the future of our family, for others, and for our country. And so what they want to do is change the discrimination clause in our Constitution. It's Article 1, Section 11 of the Constitution of New York, that says right now, it just says, you can't discriminate based on, race, color, creed, right? They want to add 11 categories to that. And part of those categories, national origin, they want to add ethnicity, they want to add age, sexual orientation, gender expression, gender identity, reproductive health care, disability, autonomy. So again, these 11 categories. And really what our problem is, or what had happened, right? Dennis said it right at the beginning of this, that you hear Equal Rights Amendment, and again, when it's going to read, right, you're going to have some dialogue says, hey, we want to protect these classes and, equal rights. I think we all want equal rights for everybody, right? And we have been, especially as a woman, as a Black person, trust me, we want equal rights. Okay. We all know the history, right, of America. And for them to put that title on that is, I think, is for a reason, because you see it and you're like, okay, well, why wouldn't I want that? But the vagueness of this amendment is really what started happening, is when we look. So again, if you look at age, and again, I'm going to try and stick within Dennis's story, just so that we don't go too, because again, each one of these has their own issue. But when
You
we're
can go
talking
all
about,
over the place. You can go all over the place with it, really.
you
All
really,
over the place with it.
yeah,
They,
all of them have
by design.
severe problems. But staying within this vein, if you can't discriminate based on age, right? I think the first thing that most of us usually hear is, hey, I'm old. You don't want old people to be discriminated against, right? And that's why they put it in. And we don't want that. But again, age legally is from the moment of breath until the end of life, first breath to last breath. That's the legal portion of this. So if you can't discriminate based on age, then why can't a 5-year-old say, I want puberty blockers? I don't want my dad or my mom to know. Right. And once they were to say something, right, you're elevating children to the authority of parents. And they could have in this put little caveats, right? Like, why is the word minor not in there? Right. They could have said minor, you can't discriminate, based, except for in the cases of minors, right? Drinking age. You can't drink when you're 15 years old. I was the knucklehead kid at 16 that would have said, hey, I'm suing. I should be able to drink at 16 years old. That
It
was
opens
the
Pandora's box. It opens
exactly
Pandora's box. Yeah.
opening Pandora's box. And now when you put it in with that sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, those counselors and all of those people now actually did nothing wrong. And where was Dennis? Where would Dennis's right to sue, to take it to court be? Would he have standing at this point if this were to pass? And again, there's a lot of lawyers looking at that, and people will say, right, like, if we didn't have Dennis on this call right now, and I'm going to give it back to him, but if we didn't have him on this call right now and you brought a story, it's like, what if something like this happened? People would be like, oh my gosh, that's never going to happen. What are you talking about? Those things don't happen in real life. Well, we have a real life person right here, right? And there's others, very similar stories. Not everyone's willing to be public. Not willing. Everyone's willing to stand up and take the stand that he took, right? There are people who are going through this all over the country. So these aren't far-fetched ideas, and we have to understand that. And we do see, right, girls' sports, locker rooms, all of these single-sex things that are coming up will be codified into our Constitution. And now, where does that leave our women who are fought so hard to have the, again, own sports, our scholarships for women, all of these? I mean, like, there's so many different issues that we could really break up. I know we only have 30 minutes, and I want to throw it back to Dennis, but that's basically what this is with the Equal Rights Amendment, or again, it's Prop 1. That's all you have to remember. On the back of your ballot, it's going to say Prop 1. We are encouraging and asking everyone not only that hears this to share it out and to let people understand what is happening, because most people don't know that on the back of their ballot there's going to be a ballot initiative, and this is going to be there. We lose last presidential election, there was also a ballot initiative. About 2 million less people voted on the ballot initiative than they did for candidates, because nobody knows that you have to flip it over. So that's a huge deal. Well,
I'm begging you to vote no to Prop 1. Okay. On the back of that ballot on November 5th. And here's why. It's because what happened to me is already happening, and you have no idea. You think that it can't happen here? Let me tell you something. My organization has foiled, meaning we've used the Freedom of Information law requests for about 6 to 12 schools in Western New York randomly. And all of those schools, and there's plenty of other ones that I have the FOIL request for that I didn't personally FOIL, all of those schools give children the right to consent with whom, when, and how to share their gender identity with. Meaning, if the student decides they don't want their parent to know that they're gender confused and they want to live a life other than the gender that they were born as, which is, there's only one, let's be real here, the school will hide that from the parent, and the school hid that from me. I am living, breathing testimony that that can happen. Now, what this is about is now they will be protected legally. So there's no kind of ramifications, no legal recourse. So for example, you want to talk about numbers? Let's talk numbers. 88% of kids that experience gender dysphoria in school outgrow it before the time they graduate. Only 4 to 5% outgrow it if you socially transition them. So what that proves, and that's a study done by Zucker, Bradley, and Singh in probably 2021, I think it is. And that was also cited in the CAS report that was just released recently. I have studied those reports extensively. And so what we know is this is a social contagion. And the likelihood that the child is going to persist into that confused gender state is much higher if you socially transition them. This gives them the legal safeguard to do so. Okay, what about these kids when they get older and they detransition, which is happening a lot now? What happens when they get older and they realize, hey, this is a mistake and I was led down this path and I was coerced into this and I didn't fully understand the
ramification.
ramification.
Too late.
It's too late. It's nobody is held responsible because now the people can say, instead of, oh, it was policy, which makes you legally liable, now we can say, oh, it was law.
That's right.
Which makes you,
it was constitutional.
Immune.
That.
So what they've done, and it's very crafty in New York State, what they've done is they've called this the Equal Rights Amendment. Well, guess what? We already had an Equal Rights Amendment. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ayesha. I think it was in 1972, and it already provided these rights to protected groups.
Yeah.
So now, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and on the protectkidsny.com, like we list out all the different places that you can see where we already have protections for each one of these classes, right? In 1964 Civil Rights Act, you have the human rights laws that we have for New York State, as well as internationally, nationally. I mean, they're all protected already.
So guess what happens, though? Guess what happens if we aren't? So let's talk about the word first before I get too far, discrimination. Because this bill is really centered around the word discrimination, which is interesting because there are legal forms of discrimination, right? But now we almost always associate discrimination with prejudice, okay? But discrimination is what gives us protected classes of people. For example, if we can't discriminate or differentiate between women, men, children, and elderly, then all of those protected classes under the 1972 Equal Rights Amendment end up being erased. Because how can we protect women if I can identify as a woman? How can we have sexual consent laws if we can't discriminate based on age?
Exactly.
So the devil is in the details here.
Dennis, could you just let people know, like the FOIL request? It's like Freedom of Information. I forgot what the L stands for. What does that stand for?
Information law. So typically it's
law.
Called a FOIA, like a Freedom of Information Act, except in New York, I think they have their own separate one, which is Freedom of Information Law for government agencies and whatnot.
Just for people I didn't know. I wanted people to know.
So this stuff, guys.
On that Indoctrinate This, that's your group, Indoctrinate This. Is any of that stuff on there, Dennis, or no?
It is. I have a FOIL template that you can use for New York State. And that's what we use typically as a boilerplate. It was actually drafted up by an actual attorney. So it's legit and you can use that. But basically, guys and gals, whatever you choose to identify as, but here with the Equal Rights Amendment, we can't, but what this does is it gets rid of all of that. And this is happening right now from what we've uncovered with the Freedom of Information Act. The only difference is if this passes in November, on November 5th, those people will not just be doing this out of policy, maybe, but they'll be doing it because the law is on their side and it tells them to do so.
And so anyone who's listening, so the Coalition to Protect Kids, we're the official ballot initiative committee that is allowed, right, telling people to vote no on this. And we do have a presentation. Dennis, he's been to a couple of them. We have a lot of different presenters, depending on where you're at, that can come and do a presentation, right, that goes through all of this, right? I mean, like right now we're right, we're sticking within this particular talking point, but it's like a 25-minute presentation, Q&A afterwards. Every Tuesday night at 6:00, we have a Zoom meeting, which is the introduction to this. So you could go watch the whole presentation from the comfort of your home, or you could ask for a presentation to, you know, be in person, right? And then have that Q&A. So you could really see all the different facets of what it is that they're trying to do, right? It's kind of like those bills that you throw all the pork in, right? They throw everything in there because there's some things that might be good. And that's all we're asking for, is that each one of these 11 categories, if anything, at the very least should have their own amendment so that we can really dig into it, right? Like, I don't want someone, if somebody does identify as, or is queer in one way or another, right? I don't want them to be beat up, or, you know what I mean? Like, we don't want inequality, but we don't want what we're talking about here to happen and for it to be protected by law. We're talking about experimenting on children, right?
And you know something?
And they're
I'm,
sterilizing those children, right? Because they can't come back. You're getting rid of their future options. And to be quite frank as well, you're interrupting their sexual pleasure as well. Because when
it's not even that, it's their whole endocrine system. Okay.
and
Puberty blockers were first prescribed to violent sexual offenders in prison to tame their devious temptations and desires. And now we're giving it to children like it's candy, and we're calling it care, and it's sterilizing these children. And why? Because under the ruse of diversity, equity, and inclusion, this is not care. This is sterilization. This is maiming. This is against our children, the future, and they cannot consent to this. And if we allow this amendment, this Parent Replacement Act to continue November 5th, we are giving them the authority to do it without any kind of legal ramifications or repercussions. They want to avoid liability. They're already doing this now. The difference is they want to get away with it.
Yeah.
That's the problem here.
So, what I wanted to say was I've always said, like, for like many years, that, they say that doctors practice medicine. So they're really practicing also on these kids. They don't know the outcome of a lot of things, I believe, in the future, what's going to happen. So they're practicing. They practice medicine. They practice everything else. But if it wasn't for people like you, and a lot of people don't understand this, I think we lost Dennis. But if people don't understand this, is that if it wasn't for people out there fighting for all these things that are going on in our country and in our state, we would be like totally off the rails. The whole country, everybody, the country, the state, if it wasn't for people out there fighting, because people don't see this. They don't see this on the news. Right. They don't see what people are doing behind the scenes, trying to fight for the freedoms.
Could you imagine if we just had, I don't know, 12 Dennises that were out there? Like, if it wasn't just him and his voice, these other parents that are out here, because some of them, I've talked to a couple others who are like, no, I really don't think that, and married couples, and one parent feels one way and the other one feels the other, and they don't want to rock the boat. Oh, okay. But could you imagine if we had all of these people who had the courage that Dennis has to stand up and to say, wait a second, not only do I see that something is wrong, but say something that is wrong, and then be willing, like our founding fathers who pledged their life, right, and their fortunes, because from what I understand, and Dennis could correct me, and again, I'm not trying to be like over the top, but he was doing pretty well for himself. He had a pretty
he sacrificed a lot in his life, his whole life, really.
That's right. He said, I'm a dad. I'm going to protect my child, and I'm going to do what's right. And we have too many parents who are sitting on the sideline, and I know they care about their kids, but the time is now for us all as parents to stand up and say, you can't have our kids.
No.
You can't do this. And I am willing to anything. I will lay down my life. I will lay down my fortune, whatever it is that it takes, so that you guys can stop doing this, because it's not okay.
So if there are parents, I want to plead, if there's any parents out there that might be going through this, or they're afraid to speak up, let me tell you something. Okay. Our kids are our future. And I sacrificed everything that I worked for because I had two choices in life. I could choose to do what's right and I could choose to do what was best for me financially, what would get me ahead. And I chose to do what was right. And when my son gets older and when he looks back on how screwed up this world is, it's not because dad did nothing. So I encourage any parent watching this, what have you done? Right? What have you done in all this? Are you just keeping your head down to keep up with the Joneses because you have a job and bills to pay? When your kids get older and they wonder, why is this world so screwed up? Is it because you did nothing? And this is the time when you can't be lukewarm, and you need to stand up and you need to vocalize and you need to express which side you're on. Because right now, the loud, radical minority is speaking over the silent majority. And until you stand up for what you believe in, your beliefs are going to be pushed off to the side. And this is fact. These are our kids and they're coming after them. So you need to pick a side, and you need to be brave, and you need to be strong, and you need to say, look, no, biological men do not belong in women's sports. Sex and gender are not what you identify as. My child cannot consent. I am the parent. We see legislation in Massachusetts just the other day where they're replacing the words father and mother with woman or persons, right? Or person who gave birth. Is that what you want to be deduced to? Is that what you want to be reduced down to at the end of things? Is just a birthing parent? Feminists, where are you? Stand up. Stand up.
I see a lot of people on social media and all over the place. Look what a great parent I am. I bring my kid here. I do this with them, and look, I love them, and this and that and everything else. But they say nothing about this situation.
No,
it bothers me. It bothers me because it's like, because you're on social media showing that you're taking them to the park, you're taking them here, whatever. It almost like self-gratifies themselves to where they're thinking in their minds that they're good parents, and they want to show everybody what a great parent you are. But if you want to be a great parent, stick up for your kids. And that's the bottom line. Because if you're not sticking up for your kids, you're not a good parent. Bottom line. I know I piss people off when I say stuff like that at times, but it's true. If you're not sticking up for your kids and their rights and stuff like that, you're not a good parent. End of discussion. I'm sorry. That's all it is.
I'm never going to give up. You know what? I don't care. Let me tell you something. I have worked with the FBI. I did 3 years of consulting with the FBI. I worked for the government. I did my time. I was a bank executive. I did so many things in my career. But the thing that I am most proud of is when God called upon me to stand up for what's right, I did. And that is the biggest accomplishment of my life, because history will remember me as somebody who did the right thing when I was called to, not somebody who stayed silent and did what was easy. I don't care. I will sacrifice it 10 times over again. I will give my career. I will lay my life down for my children. I laid my career down like it was nothing, because you know what? It wasn't. It was nothing. What's something to me is my son. Okay, and our children and his children.
And that's why you're a real dad. You are a real dad. That's what real dads do. They stick up for their family. They stick up for their kids. And you're a real dad. And there's not too many of them out there, to be honest with you. I don't think there's too many of them out there. They might claim to be dads or fathers or whatever, but you want to be a real dad or whatever. That's why I totally respect you for what you did. And we talked about before, where I kind of like raised my kids and everything. And it's a struggle. It's hard and everything. We had a conversation. It's hard, but it's the decision to stand up for your kids and do what's right for them, no matter what the situation or the consequences. That's a real dad. It's also a real mom to do the same thing.
And we need them to stand up. We need strong paternal figures. We need strong mothers to stand up and say, look, I am not a birthing person. I am a mother.
Yes.
I am not a sperm donor. I am a father, right? We need these people to stand up. Otherwise, we're going to be deduced to nothing, and the government is going to have complete and total control over our kids and how they're supposed to think and how they're supposed to feel. And what we say won't matter anymore, because we've erased ourselves off the map by tolerating and accepting it.
So we've been on roughly about 45 minutes now. So a couple of things I want to bring up real quick. Dennis, if you want to come back on and do a Q&A, because I think that'd be great if we did a Q&A. If people wanted to ask questions, if people are like concerned about their kids, and they want to ask questions about things, I think that'd be great, because hopefully more people will come on and ask questions, if that makes sense. If you want to come back on, but we can set that up.
Spicy next time. I'll try. I was a little spicy today.
And I won't blame all parents for not being good parents. But anyways, and give out like any last words from Ayesha first, and then Dennis, if you want to get any last words, and then like where people can reach you, where people can reach your organizations and everything else. Go ahead, Ayesha.
Yeah, I'll speak mine, and then I'm gonna go. And I'll let Dennis finish out. But for the most part, the Coalition to Protect Kids, and yes, I do normally do Frederick Douglass Foundation, but I've laid down all my everything. I'm not working with any candidates, doing anything. The only thing I'm doing is working on getting the message out to vote no on Prop 1 and November 4th. And I've done that because I do believe that it is the issue. We have to save New York, save our children, save our families, protect women, protect women's sport. I mean, like the whole thing is all wrapped up in this Prop 1. So if you go to protectkidsny.com, then please, donate $5, $20 if you can. We need TV commercials. We have our first billboard up in Syracuse. You can check it out. It's right by the Syracuse Fair. But the other side, who is pushing all of this, has $20 million. But, when we figured out budget-wise, different things like that, we need a fraction of that. If we raise $5 million, we're going to win, because once people understand what exactly is in this amendment and what the prop is actually trying to do, 70% of people, no matter what political ideology they're from, no matter what religious background they're from, all parents see the threat. 70% say no. So again, 70% of New Yorkers find out about this. Everybody donates $1, $5. We will be off the charts and be able to get the word out to everyone. So protectkidsny.com, and that's it.
All right. Dennis?
Yeah, so my organization, Indoctrinate This Incorporated, it's based out of Florida. I'll be honest with you guys. So I started this organization because I was looking at 30 days jail time because I violated a gag order, and I was held in contempt in Supreme Court for speaking out and speaking to the media about what happened to my son. And I want to say out there that I have never been held for defamation and libel or slander, not once in any of these news interviews that I've done. So obviously what I'm saying is the truth, because nobody's even, attested to it in court or contested to it in court. So my story is out there. I started this organization to get the word out, mostly to get around court gag orders and defy that. And I have. So now what I do is I focus a lot on like watchdog stuff with schools in Western New York, organizations where indoctrination, grooming are happening. We're keeping an eye on the laws. We're foiling schools. We're seeing just what their policies are when it comes to biological men and women's sports and how they handle what we would call gender confused kids, or what they would call gender confused kids, especially as that relates to communications with parents or lack thereof. So that's what I do. That's my organization, Indoctrinate This Incorporated, indoctrinatethis.org. You can find us there. You can also donate. We have never taken a paycheck for doing this. I do have a board of directors, about 5 or 6 people. Depends on if you include myself or not. And we don't take a paycheck for doing this. We do it because we know in our hearts it's what's right. We expose teachers that are exposing kids to radical gender ideology and indoctrinating them into this belief, or anything along those lines. So that's pretty much the gist of it as far as we're concerned. But this organization has allowed me to come forward and continue to speak to the public while being a free man outside of bars. So I hope that it inspires other people to come forward too, because we need them. There are more of us. I have heard their stories, and I hope that it inspires them to come forward like it did to me.
So Dennis, would you be willing to come on sometime in the near future and hopefully try to set up a Q&A?
Sure.
Yeah. And people need to share this video out there. Just don't sit there and look at it. Share it out there because this is so important for here in New York, and it's actually pretty much across the country. So if you share it out,
kids, they are. So
they're
share
coming
it
for
away.
kids. I mean, share it out. Just don't. I mean, seriously. I mean, if you want to help contribute, if you're going to sit back and really do nothing, at least share it out. You get the information out there about what's going on here in New York, and it really is about. You have to at least share it out. You want to contribute? That's all you have to do. Just hit the share button. See, what do you guys think? Put that in the thing. Or what do you guys think? And then post it out there and let people form their own opinions about it. Just at least share it out there.
It's like a ripple in a pond. We don't have to reach everybody. We just have to reach a few people, and those people will reach more. And that's exactly what's happening. We're uncovering drag queens being hosted on school grounds, right? Being promoted during school hours using taxpayer-funded resources. We're exposing little kids sticking dollar bills into G-strings, drag queens, stripping, right, at some of these events. And this is local. This is stuff that's sponsored by organizations around here that you would take a step back and say, oh my God, really? But it is, and it's happening here. We expose schools for allowing biological men to compete in women's sports in the Western New York region. We expose the teachers for pushing the radical gender ideology. There is nobody, let me tell you something, anybody that's watching this, if you are pushing a progressive radical ideology to kids, we're going to expose you. I don't care who you are. I'm going to name you by name. This organization will come after you, and we will not stop. We will not sleep. We don't care, because at the end of the day, you can take everything from us, but you can't take our voice. You can't take my voice.
And you can never unhear what you've heard.
Exactly.
That was a Ron Paul thing I heard years ago.
Heed the warning, though. Heed the warning, honestly. If you're doing this to kids, you better watch out. Watch your back, because we're coming for you.
That's crazy. It's a crazy world. It really blows my mind, and that I really wish more people would stand up and speak about it, because this is not a conspiracy theory. This is really a conspiracy to take over the kids by the state. The state will, when you hear people saying, we're a community, we're a family, like the whole state is a family, they're conditioning you to think that they're part of your kids' family, and it's all a conditioning thing.
Yeah, any teacher out there that wants to think otherwise, let me tell you something. We are not family. I am not your friend. I am that child's parent. And if you think you're going to teach that child anything other than the core curriculum, I got news for you. Okay? I have no mercy. May the Lord grant you mercy, because I will not.
It's unbelievable. But anyways, all right, let's get going. But Dennis, it was great having you on here. And I thought Ayesha was coming back, but I thought she got booted out. But looks like she's done. Probably has the grandchild or yelling or screaming or crying or whatever that was going on. But it was great having you on. And let's indoctrinate this. I'm going to throw this out there and kind of put you on the spot a little bit. Indoctrinate this show on Save New York. Let's talk about it.
You never know. I got a lot to say.
You don't.
I can't say it all in an hour. So more to come.
So maybe if we set it up for like in the next couple of weeks or something, we set for you to come back on, and I'll promote it out there to ask questions. Have people get ready to ask questions, and then we'll do a Q&A.
Absolutely. There is so much to cover because of the ERA stuff, and I know that I kind of bounce around too. And this was especially a little bit more passionate to me because I've been fighting this for 7.5 years with my son. And so when I see these laws, I see it for what it is. And it's hard for me to put all of this that happened with my son behind me when I see it in front of me every day. And that's what this is. So I would be more than happy to come back, Q&A. I'm very transparent. A lot of the evidence and facts are already out there. You just have to Google my name and you'll see the before and after pictures. My son's face was blurred out, but it's all true. And this is not a joke, and we need to vote no on November 5th. So I look forward to coming back and answering any questions anybody may have. And If there is something I can't answer, I will be honest and transparent with you, and try to answer it in a different way, or try to get you to ask it in a different way.
Something real quick before we end this. I mean, we're friends on Facebook. I see pictures of your son and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I know we talked about you. He's very, very well educated in what's going on in the world and everything. Unbelievable. And I see the head he wears. I saw the last post, picture you posted with him practicing something. But I won't say. But
yeah, where are the therapists now? Huh?
Yeah, I know. That's a boy. I'll tell you what.
Where are the gender therapists? I thought he was consistent. Have you seen this kid now?
He looks like a boy. He's a boy. It's like, oh my gosh, unbelievable what you did. I'm so appreciative that you. It's
all him. He started a constitutional club at school, and I had to order him to popularize constitutions, like a constitutional coalition almost. So
unbelievable.
What they've done to my son understands now that he's 10 the importance that politics played on his life. And what happened was he realized this for what it was, and he swung so far right that
he's only 10 years old.
Yeah, and he's
only 10 years old. And the thing is, you didn't push it on him. He did it on his own to figure out what was going on.
It was organic because he realized all he had to do was just see the other side of the news, maybe.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Yeah. It's amazing. But all right, Dennis, good having you on. And everybody share this out there. Let people know what this is all about. Seriously, I urge people, share it out there. It's not about Save New York. It's not about us. It's about getting the information out there. It's more important to get the information so people, knowledge is power, like they say. Knowledge is power. The more you know about things, the more power you have as an individual, really. So anyways, Dennis, good having you on. And we'll see everybody next week. And John, hopefully he's got everything straightened out, and John Spalding will be back next week to Save New York with John and Charles, hopefully. So I don't have to come back on by myself and act like I'm talking to myself.
No, anyways. Although you were talking to yourself a little bit in the beginning, but that's fine.
I do after yeah. I'm the captain of my.
I'm messing with you, Charles. I know.
I'm the captain of my own ship in a bottle. Anyways,
right. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. Vote no.
All right.
This November, and remember, stand up. Now is the time. Do not be lukewarm. Stand up for what you believe in, please. I beg of you, because this is our future.
Exactly. All right. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week, next Wednesday at 6:30. Good night.